Okay. So we're live on Instagram, we're live on YouTube, and we're live on Facebook. And the question I want to explore today is there another way of being? Now, what do I mean by that question? Well, that's a good question. So, I can't see comments. So if you're writing comments at any time and I don't respond, it's because I am unaware that you're there. So all I know is that we're live on 3 platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And again, I just want to reiterate, the question is there another way of being? Is there another way to live life? So I'd like to get into that a little deeper, because I believe, not that it's important what I believe, but it's a question that at the very least is of interest to me. Not that it matters what I think. So, having said that, let's get into it, I guess. Recently, the question has been put to me personally, not the question, the expectation of me personally, and the expectation of us all, for some reason, is to work, to put in our time, to be of service, to not be a drain on society, to do your part. And the question is there another way of doing it? You see, we've created these surface, shallow lives that consists of doing the same thing over and over again in regards to, let's say, your job, our jobs. We work, whether it's 9 to 5, or we're working shift work, or we're working 2 jobs, 3 jobs to make ends meet. And the question, one of the questions the person that's speaking is putting before you is, number one, is it healthy? Is this something that is working? Is it just something that we've done in the past, and we just continue to do it because we don't know any better, because we don't have the power to change it, the intelligence to change it. See, most of us are going about these lives that we live, most of us are going about it in a way where we follow whatever everybody else is doing. And is it healthy for us to continue going down that road, regardless of whether or not it's been that way for a long time, and and the majority of people live that way? Is it important for us to step in line, to plug into a system that is severely flawed, where essentially you're building empires for a few people that maintain the control, the power, the how would you put it? There are those that are at the top, and they require, for them to stay at the top, they require a number of people to succumb to their idea, their thought, their plan. And most of us, go along willingly. But there's a few questions here. Is it essential that we live this way? Is it essential that we continue doing it because we need to cover the bills, to ensure that our family has food, to live the way that we've been accustomed to buy insurance for our car, to put gas in our car, to have the new car? So there's that question, and then the other question is that there's probably a few questions. Maybe I'll get at it, maybe I won't. But it's important to talk about it, because it seems like it's at the root of some of our major issues in regards to depression and anxiety, sleep disorders, mental issues, mental health, physical health, stress. So if one needs to keep up with all of that, to keep up with the lifestyle, to keep up with Bob and Sue down the street who have the large house, or that go on vacations 3-4 times a year, to be able to sustain this, the way society is built, the way we've created society, civilization, the way it is, the reality of it is that you need money. And depending on what you want, you might need less or more. But most of us, humans, think we need more, and we continually spin our wheels trying to maintain it. But is it healthy? Is there another way to do it? Is there another way of being that possibly, maybe, we've missed? And we've missed it for a long time. Millions of years goes by and we're doing the same things. Over, repeating same patterns. But is there another way of doing it, and can it be done? Do we have the capacity to do it? And is it possible to create that change to live better, to live more optimally, to live in a way that there's no longer any struggle, there's no longer any confrontation, violence, there's no longer any of this. So most of us live in a state of confrontation. And any confrontation, mental, physical, it's all violence. Violence. And the nature of violence is that it perpetuates, it multiplies, it repeats itself. When you are violent, it only creates more violence. It never leads to whatever it is that you're looking for. Peace, harmony, no stress in your life. It will never amount to this because it only amounts to more of the same, which is, in this case, in this particular case, violence. Or greed, or whatever it is. So is there another way of being? Can we live in this world, on this planet as it is, with the divisions that we've created on a global scale, countries, borders, laws, on a local scale, ownership of land and fences and regulations? Can we live a different way? Is it possible to change? And does that change require time? Let's say, for the sake of argument, that we've been living this way, humanity has been living this way for millions of years. Let's just say that. Because most likely that is true, that for millions of years, civilizations have come and gone. If you know something about history, not the history that you've been taught in school, but history, we've been here for a long time. It's a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of eternity, but, you know, to our limited brains, we've been here for a long time. So, does it take just as much time to change patterns that aren't working, patterns that we've accumulated over the course of time through history, and we've stored up in our minds? We've convinced ourselves, somehow we've convinced ourselves that this is the way it is. confrontation, normal. Violence, normal. Can't do without it. Shapes us, molds us into the beings that we are. The character gives us character. Now, is this true? The Christian church has made a killing off of suffering, because they've made suffering into like a virtue of some kind. To suffer is to be more godly, to be closer to God. Now, is this true? Is there another way of being? And I think it's very, very important that we deal only with the reality. What is real? Fact, truth. It's very important that we remove ourselves from the preconceived ideas that are formed here over the course of a lifetime, over the course of millions of years, from an individual perspective to the collective perspective. Is it possible to create that change in an instant within oneself, within one's body, making the connections that are necessary for that to happen? Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But me saying, this person saying, yes, it's possible, what does that mean? We all have to individually, as a collective, come to this for things to change. Whether it's in our community, in our family, in our country, in our world, we first have to how does one do that? How does one remove themselves from, let's say, a system that is broken, a financial or an economy that is broken, that heavily favors those that have, and those that don't have will continue to have less, and those that have will have more over the course of time, and those that have less will have less, and then the gap gets bigger. Is it possible to create that change that is absolutely necessary for us as human beings to live contented lives, to be %100 content, not happy, not sorrowful, not sad, but just content? Is that possible? So, for that to happen, we need to also just recognize that what is the reality of the situation that we live in, wherever we are around the world. Everybody has a certain reality. But in general, we're all fighting against the same things. So why is there that continual conflict this is a question that should be explored to pursue whether we are capable of even creating a change to live a more optimal existence. Right? Right. But you can't make the change unless you know that the thing that is going on, or the thoughts that are in your own head, are wrong, or off, or not serving you in a way that allows you to experience contentment, or whatever contentment means. And maybe some of us don't know what contentment means, and this is part of the problem with language. But to go step by step, to make sure that we all understand that we're all on the same page, it's important to take it slowly, methodically, and at every step of the moment during a conversation like this, to be a part of the dialogue, to not think and rationalize with the mind, but to experience the whole conversation as a whole person, as a whole, not just individual, but as a whole as well. So, humanity has bought into the idea that working, selling your time, selling their time for money, is necessary to achieve certain ends. Again, to pay bills and shit. We've convinced ourselves that there's no other way to do it other than the way we've been doing it, regardless of how miserable it makes us. We go to a job, we punch a clock, we stay there for a period of time. We go home, we spend little time with our families because over the course of time you've had to work harder and harder to maintain what you have. You don't see your wife, you don't see your husband. Maybe you're working different shifts just to make ends meet. This is where we're at right now, where work dominates and convinces us that is what and who we are. Our work defines us. Right? This is true. Like when you approach someone for the first time and the first initial question is always, so what do you do for a living? As if that has any real importance. Is it important? Is it important to have all these identifications? Or is it keeping us back from being who who we really are. So the next question that would come up would be, can we really answer that question without knowing who we are? Why we're here? What the purpose of it is? Maybe not. And that's probably a big part of the issue, is most of us, in the world, the population, 7.5 billion people in the world, how many, and really question this, how many of us know who we are? How many of us have taken the time to dedicated the time to just be with that, not to be something that somebody else wants us to be or expects us to be. So Facebook just went out on me, and I'm going to continue. If you'd like to, if Instagram for some reason cuts out, YouTube is still going. But let's continue. How we live, how humanity lives, is, it would seem that it's not going forward. And for some reason, I think that I should end here because that ended there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. So until next time, Instagram, maybe we could talk about this a little bit more. Because I got a feeling that selling your time for money is just a really shitty idea. And we gotta rethink it, because that is equal, that is beneficial to everyone. Then we need to think about these things. Because it's not just us. It's not just the individual, but it's the whole. It's the whole thing that is affected. And we can get into that later, what I personally mean by this collective confusion mostly, but maybe possibly by using our words and by understanding what those words mean, we can come to or we can come closer to whatever the truth is, so that we can make those changes. Alright, bye Instagram. So that leaves YouTube. We'll see if YouTube is still up. Again, I can't see any comments. I don't know who's here. But feel free to leave them. So right now we're going on 32 minutes on YouTube, and we're still going. The reason why is because I'm live streaming. I'm not. This isn't just like a webcam thing where if it cuts out, it shuts off. And I'm wondering, for that reason, maybe, possibly, I should be doing these talks solely on this, or at least ending the thought on YouTube, so that people, if they want, if they find it interesting, necessary, important, whatever, that they can refer back, or they can refer to it to see where the end of that thought went. Are we at the end of that thought? I'm not sure. Here's what I know, which is very little. In fact, everything I know is questionable. It's suspect, and it should be. Knowledge is the acquisition of information over a period of time, individually, since we were kids, babies, up until this point, wherever we're at. It's the accumulation of information. And in the end, knowledge doesn't really mean anything. The knowledge that we've acquired in our brains, in our heads, in our minds, that computer that we use and that we abuse every day, thinking it's something, thinking that it is it, when in fact it's not it. It is a reflection or a mask. An illusion. So is it important for us to understand this? To understand that we are not what we think. We think we are what we think, but we're not what we think. Is it important to understand that fact? If it's a fact, if it's a truth, yes, it is very important that we understand that we are not the creation of the mind. Whatever the mind perceives ourselves to be, we are not that. We are not our names or a number or a part of an organization or a citizen of a country. These things, all these things that we find that are important, we are not that. Can we all agree on this? Most likely not. I believe that belief, it's the wrong word, but I'm sure that most of us don't subscribe to that. And therein lies one of the problems. It's that we have these identities that we've created, we've bought into the illusion. We are all acting out a part in a grand play. And most of us don't realize that we're actually playing a part. We bought into it to such a degree that we believe that we are the person on that stage. We are the person, the entity that we are trying to represent on that stage, on this stage. Can we all agree on this? No. I don't think we can all agree on this right now, where we're at. Can we all get there? Probably. But what does that entail? What needs to happen for that to really set in, and is it important for it to happen? Well, it may be very important if we want a change, to have something better, to not be so consumed with the next thing that comes down the road, the next job, the next religious experience, the next whatever it is. We're all chasing something, it would seem. Most of us are chasing the next fix, to be happy, to continue being happy. And most of us live between this being happy and being sad, sorrow and desire. The quest for more and the worry of not having. Right? Most of us live in between that. We're back and forth. So that's the manic that's how most humanity lives, and they've been living this way. Humanity's been living this way for a long time. Now, again, the question is that is there another way of being? Is there another way of conducting our lives? Is there and does that require more knowledge, more information, or does that require something else, like a connection of some kind? And of course, this is a leading question. But I'd like to get to it. I want to get to it. However long it takes, I want to get to a point where we all can understand, realize where we're at in this particular dialogue. It's very important. Now, I'm assuming that if someone is listening to this, they're probably doing it for a few reasons. I'll name two. One is to either prove to be on the war. Most of us, I think, if we're listening up until this point, are interested in whatever the truth of it is. But most of us probably are living in a fog of some kind, ignorance, and not really knowing, not understanding. Knowing is overrated. Knowing is it's a huge part of humanity's problems. Humanity thinks it knows. Right? Humanity thinks it's clever, it's smart, that it knows more than the earth that has conceived it, more than the universe that has created it, more than whatever it is that created it all. The unnameable, the eternal, the unnameable, which makes it very difficult to talk about. So we have religions that sit as mediators between what they say truth is and what that all means. And again, humanity is bought into these systems. So most of humanity follows. That's a fact. Most of humanity does not question authority. The authority that the church has, the authority that their country has, the government, the jobs that they work in, the corporations, the system. Most of us don't question it. Right? So if it's not working, then this would be a problem, not questioning it. Now, I'd be curious to know, not that I will, because I can't see any comments, I can't see anything. Be curious to know if that's actually clear, if that's more clear, if we're getting to it. So the idea of allowing an organization, an institution, like a church, let's say, to speak on behalf of everyone and say, this is how you should live. You should refrain from this. You should do that, and you should believe in Him. God. Allah. Muhammad. Jesus. Whatever it is. Buddha. Doesn't matter. Religion puts itself out as the undeniable truth. But is that even a possibility when we think we know, we've seen it, we've experienced we know certain things, history, how religion has been the result of wars and the result of all sorts of atrocities. We know this, right? So, is that truth? The same with, let's say, governments. So we have governments that say, be a productive member of society. Put your time in. Don't be a drain. Everybody has to do something to make sure that the wheel keeps turning. And yet, we can see, fact, that there's a disparity, there's a gap between those that have and those that don't, and it's huge. And the ones that have at the top, that have accumulated all this wealth, are a small number, and it's getting smaller and smaller as time goes on. Time. Right? So how can that be truth? We have allowed the system to become corrupt, and we're okay with it. We've allowed people to lead us that lie to us. We're okay with that as well. The more lies that are being perpetuated, the more most of us, have just been accustomed to it and have accepted it as a normal practice of ruling, making decisions. Now, does that make any sense? Does it make any sense to continue following, giving ourselves and our time to ensure that people like that, the few, maintain the control that we've given them? It doesn't make sense for us to allow it to continue. And are we allowing it to continue by participating in the very things that create this amazing amount of wealth? By participating, by giving ourselves and our time to it, and selling ourselves, our time, for money, for scraps, is that helping? No. It is not helping if we want there to be something different. If we continue doing the same things over and over, same patterns, continuing the same cycles, and we know the fallacy of these cycles, we know that it's not working, right? But we continue to buy into it. We continue to put ourselves out there, giving our whole being to it. Sacrificing our family, sacrificing relationships, sacrificing whatever it means to be content in this life. Right? Why is there so much depression in the world? Why have we come to this point in time to manipulate the brain in such a way to ensure that we don't feel exactly what is going on, the truth, the fact of it? Why is this happening on a global scale, especially in first world countries, where depression, suicide rates, anxiety is at a high, and it's getting worse? The family's deteriorating. The things that should be important, relationships, family, the reasons, most likely the reasons why we're here is to have these relationships. What else would there be, really? But most of us have bought into this idea that the meaning of life is to consume more, to have more, to stockpile, to own more. And we have to ask ourselves, is it working? And if it's not working, why do we continue to do it? Right? It's the logical question to ask. We are not crazy to ask that question. Right? Right? That's a sane, rational question to ask. And yet, we put each other in these boxes. When you think outside the box. It's like, get back in the box. Stay in the box. Everybody's in the box. Be in that box. Because there's no other way to live other than being inside of this particular box. So again, is it possible to do something different? And is it possible to create that change somehow, that in an instant it can be changed, and now the box does not exist? So, humanity has put themselves in these boxes. Or it's just one big box. Right? And we think that by just poking a few holes in the box, and by dropping little crumbs inside these holes, that it'll sustain itself, that existence inside of a box being fed through small little holes, crumbs, from those that don't live inside that box, the elites, the people with power, the ones that control. They don't live inside that particular box. They have their own box, but it's not that particular box. Is this a way to live? And do you see the majority of people, the majority of humanity doesn't see it? They've got blinders on. So they only see what's directly in front of them, and that's the only option. Right? They can't see over here, they can't see over here, they can't see up there or down here. They can't see inside, they can't see inward. They only see what's right in front of them. So they're living in a one-dimensional mindset. One path. And everybody's going down that path, so it seems like it's the thing to do. Everybody's doing it. So is there another way of doing this thing? Is there another way of being? Yes. Absolutely. How do you get there? Now, is there a difference between being there within oneself, having come to the realization, whatever it is, people put names to it, experience, whatever it is, nirvana, consciousness, awareness, whatever name you want to fucking put to it. Now, is there a difference between that, which is a fact, something that is attainable? Is it? Well, maybe we haven't even come to that yet. But is there a difference between that and coming to, again, the realization, once you've come to that realization, to know that you are connected to everything, right? Because once you know that, once you've come to that awareness, then you know that the individual is connected to the collective, which is then what? Is there something beyond this? Beyond even knowing that, beyond having that awareness. So the answer? What's the answer? I'd like to explore this further. And maybe you do too. And if not, that's fine too, right? It's not going to be optimal. It's not going to be all inclusive. But I'm banking on the fact that if you're listening to this, if you've listened this far, that we'll be able to get to the next stage, the deeper meaning, the reason for being. So on that note, I'm going to end this stream. I'm coming to you live from Penticton, British Columbia, Canada, at the Beaumont Motel in room 240. And if you're on YouTube and you're also on Facebook and Instagram, I'm on Instagram, Tommy Glenn Cowles 37 on Instagram, Tommy Cowles on Facebook, and then Tommy Cowles on YouTube. So I wonder if this is a thing that's important enough that we all want to come to a better understanding of why we're here and how we can do things different. I wonder. I guess we'll see. Right?